between the headlines. It's 6:19 Central, 7:20 Eastern Time in the District of Columbia, 76 degrees. Partly cloudy, 56% chance of precipitation. Yes, it's a little cloudy in D.C., but it will be brightening up very soon. President Trump, we're going to get to all the latest from the White House rundown. So good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network, Chief White House Correspondent, delivering the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming partner, Trump Daily Post. Well, tonight, the big story from the White House is the Trump administration's aggressive response to the New World screwworm threat, alongside a full presidential schedule from Bedminster that includes a tele-rally and the president's trip to New York for the NBA Finals. The White House focus today is squarely on what Republicans are calling the Biden bug, formerly known as the New World screwworm. The Trump administration is combating the Biden bug, formerly known as the New World screwworm. You see, these cases are a direct result of Biden's failed border policies, which allowed unchecked migration and no vetting process for animals. For more than 30 years, this parasitic fly was eradicated from the continental United States and contained in South America. The containment barrier that protected the United States for decades eroded under the Biden administration. The White House-backed response is immediate and forceful. The administration has appointed John Bellinger as the USDA's new senior advisor for New World screwworm preparedness. They formed a unified incident command team with the Texas Animal Health Commission and deployed Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service rapid response teams. The response also includes control zones, expanded surveillance, and the release of millions of sterile male flies. That's each week to collapse the pest population. The bottom line from the administration is clear. The New World screwworm spent 30 years moving south under Biden. It turned around and started moving north. The Trump administration is now working closely with ranchers, farmers, and government officials because protecting American agriculture is not optional. It is essential. And the White House also emphasizes that early treated animals recover fully and remain safe for the food supply, meaning there is no food safety issue. And according to the daily guidance, President Trump, he spent the morning and executive time in Bedminster, New Jersey, scheduled to participate in a 5:30 p.m. tele-rally from Bedminster before departing for New York City, where he is set to attend the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden tonight. The schedule projects exactly what this White House wants to show: a president working through major national challenges, speaking directly to the American people, and remaining visible on the public stage. The broader message from the White House remains one of America First momentum. The administration continues highlighting strong economic messaging, including the May jobs report and the working family tax relief, while today's dominant development is the administration's rapid action to protect U.S. agriculture and hold the line after the failure of the previous administration. And from the pool report, the White House press pool, they were traveling ahead of the president to New York City this afternoon after a brief Secret Service security check in Bedminster. So taken together, the last 24 hours show a White House centered on action, accountability, and visible presidential leadership, confronting a cross-border agriculture threat, coordinating response teams, and keeping the president actively engaged with both supporters and the country at large. And with that, our White House update is complete. Let's turn now to the rest of tonight's top stories, what we're looking at. Big news out of South Carolina. If you've been tracking us on X, then you know exactly what's going on. We're going to get to all the details in that hot primary for the governor's office, and a surprise message from one of the candidates who could very well be the next governor from South Carolina. We're honored for that message. Also, we're going to talk about what's going on in California. President Trump has had enough, and there is massive news out of California with respect to that election. We have the latest out of Iran and the ceasefire negotiations, as well as Israel's attack that occurred as Iran launched a whole new barrage of missiles into Israel and President Trump's response there. Also, the citizenship crackdown, President Trump busting a fraud ring, blue states panicking as well. Also, there's a massive ice surge that's about to take place in New York. We have the governor's response as well as the broader response that'll be taking place nationwide. Of course, blue states are a little nervous because they need those illegal aliens, of course, right? They need them in their states so that they can continue their fraud operations and continue to prop up the vote, right? We're also going to talk about that screw worm and Canada's response. Not good. We'll also talk about, well, actually, that's what we've got. That's all on the menu tonight. So I want to thank you for joining us on this live broadcast. We are broadcasting across all platforms. You can find us at Next News on X, as well as at Trump Daily Posts. Glad to be over there as well. And we are on YouTube. That's one of our primary locations for the past 15 years since this channel began, right after the 2012 election cycle. And also on Rumble, and now on Kick. Yes, you can get your kicks with the Next News Network on Kick. All right, so Brian, let's get at it. We got a lot of news we're going to be covering. No more time to waste because the news waits for no man. And of course, our system is deciding that it's not wanting to cooperate. So let's go ahead and make sure everything is cooperating. I will... Let's see if we can get the system up and running. No, it doesn't want to play ball. Okay, well, we're going to get this working for you in just a moment. And you never know exactly what piece of the technology that you rely on is going to cause you the most pain. And right now, I think it's coming online. Is it? Oh, yes, it is coming online. And we're going to make sure that we have our audio lined up for you too. Is it coming through? Is our audio coming through? Apparently not. So let's go ahead and make sure that audio is lined up. I should have done this before we went live, but sometimes we're just in such a hurry to get the news out to you guys that we kind of skip a few steps. But that's all part of the process. So you guys are watching it live. Okay.
Such appreciation.
Oh, that doesn't sound very good, Brian. That doesn't sound very good at all. Let's try this.
Everyone, this is Alan Wilson.
No.
To Next News.
I wonder, should I perhaps... I may need to reboot the...
For having me on there.
Okay, so, all right, so there may be some radio silence here for a minute as I reboot our audio device. I think I just simply have to... All right. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now? Okay, it looks like we're back. Are we back? Okay, so everyone can hear me now? Can you hear me? All right, chat, can you hear me? All right, okay. All right, guys, it looks like we're back. Sorry about the delay. You know, we do our best over here with the resources that we have, so appreciate your patience. Okay. Brian, I'm ready. South Carolina is about to tell the whole country where the Republican Party is headed next. And no, this is not just another governor's race. What we're watching is a live test of the law and order governing model that has defined the Trump comeback and now drives conservative victories coast to coast. Alan Wilson, he's not running on empty slogans. He's running on prosecution, immigration, enforcement, judicial accountability, and consequences for chaos. And when you line up the receipts, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. This campaign is not selling promises, it's selling enforcement. And the question is very simple. Are voters about to reward that model again? See, here's why this matters, far beyond South Carolina, because for years, Republicans talked about crime, border security, and activist judges under President Trump. That talk has hardened into action. And voters are responding to leaders who don't apologize for using the power of government to restore order. That's exactly why Alan Wilson is packaging what he's packaging in this race. He tells undecided voters he cares about affordability, quality education, and safer communities, but the way he frames it, all of it, is through enforcement. He says while other politicians were cutting ribbons and naming post offices, he was fighting as a combat veteran, a prosecutor, and attorney general. I personally met him. Great guy. And he reminds voters that he was the one who stood up for President Trump in court. And he points to judges who let violent offenders back on the street, illegal hiring schemes built on forged documents and stolen identities, and mob-style unrest pushed by extremist left-wing groups. This is not the old country club Republican pitch. This is consequences, accountability, and public order delivered without hesitation. And while we're talking about protecting your family and planning ahead, that same mindset applies to your finances as well. So if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Well, of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? That's the question Noble Gold Investments wants Americans asking before the next major run is already underway. See, the people who recognize oil early didn't just make money. They got ahead of one of history's biggest economic transformations, and today silver offers a similar opening. It's not just a precious metal, it's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing base that powers the modern world. To learn why so many smart Americans are paying attention, visit nextnewsgold.com right now and see how you may qualify for a 1/10 ounce gold coin. Now back to the race that is quickly becoming a national test case for America First enforcement politics. Here's the twist the corporate media still does not want to admit. Wilson's message is landing because voters have watched too many leaders talk tough and then do absolutely nothing. See, Wilson's trying to show the opposite, not just that he supports law and order, but that he's already done the job. He says personally he took a case to the South Carolina Supreme Court to get a violent murderer locked up, back up, after a judge let him out 16 years early. See, that's not branding, that's called a record. And once you see the receipts and everything I've got stacked up, the pattern gets very hard to miss. And I was shocked this morning to receive this message from the next governor of South Carolina. He dropped a personal shout out to Next News Network, thanking me personally and asking all of our supporters, all of our viewers to get out and vote because Election Day is tomorrow and your vote for Alan Wilson makes a difference. Check this out.
Hello, everyone. This is Alan Wilson. I want to give a big shout out to Next News Network and Gary Franchi for having me on their show earlier this past year during the campaign. I know all of you are big supporters of Next News Network, and while Next News Network does not do official endorsements, I'm asking you to vote for me for governor of South Carolina. I look forward to fighting for you as your next governor. The election isn't here now today. Let's go win this thing together. Thank you so much and appreciate you. God bless.
God bless you too. And yes, I got to hang out with him, interview him. We went to an event at a Cambodian Buddhist temple, actually. If you were following any of my Cambodian coverage, I was there with him at a temple, and it was just a remarkable event. So I got to really connect with him. So he didn't just ask for our support. He's showing exactly how he'd govern. Watch him lay down the law and warn left-wing agitators that South Carolina won't tolerate mob rule. This from Colin Rugg, posting that the South Carolina AG, Alan Wilson, threatens to throw extremist left-leaning groups in prison if they bring chaos to his state. The statement comes as Wilson leads a coalition of 19 state AGs in support of Trump's deployment of the National Guard. Now, in my interview with him, I specifically asked him about this and how he would support President Trump's move. But of course, he says it here. We will not tolerate mob rule. Check this out.
Earlier, my office put out a public safety advisory regarding upcoming protests going on around the country that are going to be coordinated with extremist left-leaning groups that are here to disrupt and vandalize local communities. I'm here to say to those people, if you come to South Carolina, if you attack law enforcement, if you attack people, if you destroy property, if you're disruptive and violent, we will come after you, we will put you in jail, we will prosecute you. There is no room for outside agitators in South Carolina. Play stupid games, you will win stupid prizes.
And while we may not officially endorse candidates, I mean, sometimes we just have to come out and say, yeah, you know what? You got to get out and vote for this guy. I appreciate the couch. But hey, so that was Wilson in full prosecutor mode, promising jail for rioters. And next he makes a broader case for governor, saying while other politicians played games, he was the one fighting for families and standing with Trump. Here's one of his posts at this debate, and he just knocked the socks off of all of his opponents. Check this out.
Good evening. I'm Alan Wilson, and I would like to start by saying, first of all, thank you to those of you who have already decided to support me in the race for governor. I would now like to speak to those of you who remain undecided. The concerns and issues that you have are the same ones that I have. Issues like affordability, quality education, and safer communities. These are important to me. While some of my opponents have been out cutting ribbons and naming post offices, I have been fighting for you as a combat veteran, as a prosecutor, and as an attorney general. I'm the only person here who had the courage to stand up and support President Trump in court. I promise you, if you elect me governor, I will bring that same fight and that same spirit to the office of governor. Thank you.
And in my interview with him, he explicitly told me how much he personally spent I think it was about $150,000 of his own money defending his law license. They were trying to strip it from him because he was standing with President Trump on elections, and they just were relentless. They're trying to take him out, but he's still standing. And he argued that he's a fighter in the race, not just another ribbon-cutting career politician. Now he gets specific, taking aim at the South Carolina broken judicial system, pushing a plan to make judges answer to the people. And that's exactly what we need, judicial accountability.
As the only person on this stage who's actually prosecuted cases in front of judges, had to defend and protect victims from judges and defend all of your constitutional rights, no one has more of a vested interest in how judges are selected. I've spent the better part of 15 years advocating for judicial selection reform. I've written op-eds, I've lobbied the legislature. In fact, they did the most reform 2 years ago. It wasn't far enough. I agree with what Rom said. We didn't go far enough. But it was because of my efforts 2 years ago that we got some reform. As governor, I would advocate for a system where where the governor has complete nominating authority over the people who select judicial nominees. Let the legislature up or down vote the judges, but if you get bad judges who are letting violent criminals out that are killing and hurting people, you can go to your House member and complain, but there's only one governor you can blame for the nomination to begin with.
So after calling for real judicial accountability, he brings receipts. Here he goes straight at a debate rival over a judge who let a violent murderer out early in the Supreme Court fight to lock him back up.
In all due respect, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You claim you're not a career politician, but you were elected in 2004, and if you're elected governor, you will be in your 80s when you leave office. That is by definition a career politician. Ralph, you attacked me for saying something nice about a judicial candidate. I had to go to the Supreme Court because a judge you voted for let a violent murderer out of prison 16 years earlier, and I had to go to the Supreme Court and argue that case myself to get him locked back up. Thank you for your service.
Wow. So that clash made his closing argument clear. When the system failed, he stepped in and fought. Now we shift from the debate stage to the ground game as he works the final day of the bus tour, kicking off the last day of his bus tour in our backyard in West Columbia. Tomorrow's the day. Let's finish strong. So he's on the campaign trail right now. Here he is. This is a report from... Let's see, criminal networks use forged documents. This is a major case involving illegal aliens, stolen identities, and prosecutors going after the criminal network behind it. He had this to say, criminal networks use forged documents, stolen identities to put illegal aliens to work, even rehiring the same person under multiple identities. Real Americans in South Carolina were the victims. We're following the facts and going to prosecute those responsible. This just shows that he's doing the work.
Attorney General Alan Wilson explained the two managers not only failed to verify employee IDs, but helped the workers use forged identities to gain employment.
For instance, hiring the same person 2 or 3 times with 2 or 3 different identities because they haven't gotten the paperwork right. That kind of information. That is what we are targeting.
As a byproduct of those arrests, Wilson says Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, also detained 48 workers for alleged immigration violations.
So I want to make it clear, we are not targeting communities because of what you look like or where you work. We're targeting specific conduct. We're following the facts of that conduct, and if it leads us to a crime, we're going to prosecute that crime.
Officials say many of the fake documents used the names, dates of birth, and social security numbers of real U.S. citizens.
There was a real problem with the fact that just with a few $100s, people could get fake licenses, fake social security cards, LPRs, and other identification documents, in many instances of real Americans whose identities are being stolen.
So that shows you he's out there. He's doing the work. Crackdown focus on protecting South Carolinians from fraud and lawlessness. Now compare that with the Democrat side of the aisle. Footage of Charleston County Democrat Party Chairman and gubernatorial candidate William Mullins McLeod, Jr. during a wild arrest. Charleston County Democrat Party Chairman, current South Carolina Governor candidate William Mullins McLeod, went on an insane, unhinged rant, screamed profanities, threatened to kick the teeth in of rivals, and yelled at cops. At the time, he was charged with public disorderly conduct and was allegedly high on drugs. This is the video from the police cruiser. Oh, boy.
If this is going where I think it could be heading, I think I just figured out that the President of the United States is my cousin. Okay, so trust me, at this point, nothing is crazier than you and me either being related or you being not guilty. Okay, that's just the way my brain has been trained. Either you and me are related or you're not guilty. That's the only way to get from me in this ass police car that, oh, by the way, is owned by the finest city in America. Okay, so it's not the car, it's the people with those guns and badges that make it corrupt. Because the cars that look just like this, when they take the people's $9 billion door to door, door to door, and I know where some of that cash is. But I got to ask somebody that's extremely close to me, that name you do not know, whether I have his permission to tell the world. That secret may remain buried, and that's fine with me, because I can take you out if I need to down the road real soon. Or In the morning, I wake up and there will be a fair and just, equitable. See, equitable remedy is the court where there's no jury. You follow me? So when it comes to dividing land, like disputes, you got one dude or one gal. But you know what? Watch this. There was a black man, master necker in Richland County.
Okay, I've had enough of this guy. Just unhinged, wearing no shirt in the back of a police car. That's the Democrat opposition, guys. So what does it all really mean? It means South Carolina is becoming a proving ground for the post-Trump Republican formula. Enforce the law, back the police, punish fraud, protect legal workers, and stop pretending every public crisis needs another study committee. Wilson's campaign ties illegal immigration to identity theft, job fraud. It ties weak judging to dead victims and broken families. It ties left-wing street chaos to immediate prosecution, not negotiation. And their message fits this moment because voters are exhausted by disorder. They want leaders who will act, right? So the phrase may be blunt, but it works because people understand it instantly. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's not just a line. It's becoming a governing doctrine on the right. And this is why South Carolina, why the race, why it deserves national attention. Alan Wilson isn't simply asking for a promotion from attorney general to governor. He's offering a state-level version of the same enforcement-first approach that has energized the America First movement under President Trump. Secure communities, protect citizens, prosecute fraud, defend jobs, and make institutions answer for failure. And the contrast could not be clearer. On one side, a Republican making the case for order, accountability, and consequences. On the other, Democrats tied yet again to chaos, excuses, and public meltdown footage and tells voters everything that they need to know. If this model keeps on winning, expect more Republican candidates across the country to adopt it fast. And that's the real story. So I want to hear from you. Should every Republican candidate run on law, order, and consequences first? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. And remember to share this with someone in South Carolina. Because you know why? Your vote tomorrow could make all the difference. And if you're new here, subscribe to the Next News Network for the stories that the left-wing media will never tell you straight. Most importantly, though, text the words raw feed to that number on the screen, 844-840-4963. That's how we cut out the middleman and go direct, right to you. Right, when the algorithm decides to show you CNN or MSNBC spin or the notifications never arrive, I will send them to you direct. Make sure you celebrate America 250 with us. It's right around the corner, folks. Check out the merch shelf below this video. Pick up something you like, and let's celebrate together. All right, folks, it's time to get out the vote in South Carolina. Thank you for joining us. Ginga Jeff, this is one-sided news. We don't do endorsements, but vote for this guy. Hey, man, I make the rules here. This is my show, my channel, all right? I do what I want here, all right? All right. I appreciate the comment, though. I did catch that. That's funny. Okay, I think I did see a super chat that came through as well. Oh, yeah, Clifford Johnson. What do you say? Thank you so much for the live stream. You guys are rocking it. That came in on the YouTube side of things. And we are just bringing in the viewers right now. We're streaming on all platforms. X at Next News Network, at Trump Daily Post, our streaming partner on YouTube, Rumble, and even on Kick. So we thank everyone on all platforms for joining, sharing, and telling your friends and family about us. Okay, Brian, we got to get to some more news here. We got to talk about what is going on in California. Trump destroying California as fraud fears explode. That is the big story right now. President Trump not pulling any punches. And, of course, what happened over the weekend, you took that reporter to task. Yeah, she chose the low road. President Trump kicked her down the road. And what was this? What is this? Oh, hey, Karen Finley celebrating 14 months of membership. So glad the lives are back. Love you guys. Love you, Karen. Thank you for your support. Okay, Brian, let's go ahead and get this next story. Tonight, the real story is bigger than one California race, bigger than one ballot dump, and bigger than one media meltdown. We have a new report alleging Minnesota Democrats ignored massive fraud warnings, a California voter roll that reportedly lists a 126-year-old voter. I want to know the secret there. And a fresh ballot fraud arrest in Alabama. And a growing national fight over whether elections can still be trusted at all. And then President Trump lit the fuse, blasting California's drawn-out counting and walking away from Kristen Welker after refusing to play the media game. The question now isn't just who wins, it's whether Americans still believe the process itself is even honest. And I'll tell you why this matters, because for years, the ruling class told Americans to stop asking questions, stop noticing delays, stop noticing dirty voter rolls, stop noticing absentee ballot abuse, and above all, stop connecting corruption to one system to weakness in another. But voters are connecting it right now. A newly released 200-page report in Minnesota alleges that Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison knew about major fraud concerns tied to programs like Feeding Our Future as far back as 2020 and failed to act, even retaliating against whistleblowers. That's not a paperwork error. That is the kind of institutional failure that destroys public trust. And then look at California, where citizen investigators are finding bizarre voter roll entries, including a woman allegedly listed as 126 years old with dozens of elections attached to her record. And the long ballot counts, no voter ID, and repeated late surges in the middle of the night. And Americans are asking the obvious question: if government can't stop fraud in public programs, why should anyone assume that election systems are untouchable? And when institutions fail you, whether in government or health, people start looking for answers that actually work. Now, you've probably seen the clip, Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they impact the body at a cellular level. Gibson just says it straight, this stuff works. That got my attention because in my own life, I watched something very similar unfold. For a long time, my wife was dealing with constant comfort and anxiety. One of those situations where you feel powerless. Then I learned more through Jonathan Otto in my countless interviews with him and talking about red light therapy. His website's myredlight.com. So it made enough of a difference that I knew I needed to share it. But now, if you want to look into it for yourself, just go to myredlight.com or check out all of the interviews I've done with Jonathan. They are just mind-blowing. But when you go to myredlight.com, use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Now back to the story, because what's happening in these elections is exactly why Americans are done taking the official narrative on faith. But here's the twist that the media just doesn't want to admit. This is no longer just a California optics problem. It's becoming a national confidence problem. We now have an Alabama case where a former mayor and a city council candidate were arrested over alleged mail-in ballot fraud in an election that was thrown out. At the same time, Democrats are melting down over the mere possibility of stronger enforcement at polling places. If the system's clean, why panic when someone proposes checking whether only legal voters are casting ballots? That's a simple question, right? But the big story, President Trump, the interview with Kristen Welker over the weekend, absolutely going viral. President Trump going scorched earth on California elections and walks off an interview, leaving Kristen Welker absolutely humiliated. Now, you may have seen the clip, but it's certainly worth watching again. If you haven't seen it yet, buckle up.
They did to the lives of people. They destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying. But let me ask you about Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
She's trying to change
There's tremendous evidence. There's nothing but evidence. The election was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
Presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California. Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
To that?
It's
the
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days and they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count.
You know
the
why
votes
they're doing
in
that?
California.
Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all
that?
I have to do is look. All I have to do is
that's
look.
not
And
evidence.
I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in
Do you
California.
think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a
State
winner?
and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging
They're
the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about
elections
you
in
went
this
to
country.
court.
We're like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked,
but, Mr.
and so
President-
is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President-
You're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good
Mr.
time.
President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat
I
in
traveled
the rain with
all.
you.
I know. I
I've sat in the
traveled
rain
all the
with
way
you
to
for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be
We
great
traveled
with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Beautiful.
I spoke with President Trump on Saturday, and we both acknowledged the complications during the interview posed.
Complications during the interview. Yeah, you're just carrying water. Oh, no. Oh, election fraud. Oh, 2020 stolen. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no such evidence. Yeah, the whole thing was rigged. Kristen, you know it. You're just carrying water. But Trump called California's vote count crooked right to her face. Now let's go to Minnesota, where 200-page report says Tim Walz and Keith Ellison saw fraud warnings early, did nothing. A newly released 200-page report is putting Minnesota's top Democrats under intense scrutiny. Reports allege Walz and Ellison were aware of major fraud concerns tied to programs like Feeding Our Future as far back as 2020, but failed to act on warning signs and in some cases retaliated against whistleblowers. Listen.
The earth-shattering report accuses Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison of knowing about fraud as far back as 2020 and ignoring or retaliating against whistleblowers.
We had the $250 million takedown of the Feeding Our Futures campaign in Minnesota, which was supposed to be money for feeding our children. We've convicted 77 people involved in that campaign. Just the other month, back in Minnesota, a $90 million fraud against autism centers for our most vulnerable children.
The 200-page report says Minnesota state officials ignored warning signs about the fraud and even tried to cover it up. Walz claims he worked to find corruption through additional audits.
The buck stops with me. And as I know, some of you will take that as an open invitation to play politics with every incident of fraud that takes place here in Minnesota, even though I have to tell you, the statistics show it's happening in red states more than here. But so be it.
Yeah, sure.
The report says Minnesota officials dismissed fraud probes. It says they feared accusations of racism. The committee says that Ellison met with people from Feeding Our Future, including those later convicted of fraud. Now, the House this week is again focusing on fraud via legislation. One bill up this week cracks down on ghost students and fraud in student aid programs.
Yeah, the fraud's everywhere. Elections, Minnesota, showing what happens when Democrats look the other way. Out in California, a citizen journalist knocking on one door and finds a so-called registered voter listed at 126 years old. Trump Daily Post dropping this bomb from Nick Shirley. He found a 126-year-old registered voter in California. They're mailing ballots to dead people and illegals. Then ballots get harvested and dumped late. California is gone. Thank God for Nick Shirley.
So how old is this person who's eligible to vote here inside the United States, inside the state of California?
126 based on the Secretary of State.
And this is Doris.
Yeah.
And now we're going to see if Doris is home. Hey, Doris?
She's right here. Yes.
Hello, Doris.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We're just going through the voting rolls here, and we're just confirming anybody who's above the age of 100 years old. And right here it says you're 126 years old.
No, you got the wrong house.
Are you Doris Wood?
Yeah, but you got the wrong house. I'm Doris Wood, but you got the wrong place. That's the wrong information, all that stuff. No, that's wrong.
Oh, here, I can show you if you like.
No, it's just that it's wrong.
How come you think here in California they're just messing up on all these voting rolls here?
I don't know, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it says you voted in 51 elections, Doris.
No, not me.
Really?
I'm not no 100-something years old.
I know.
I said I wasn't.
I just want to make sure you're not 126 years old.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it really does say you're 126 years old here.
No.
Says,
Who did this be 126? That don't even make sense.
I know, that's what the Secretary of State says.
Well, the Secretary of State is wrong.
Okay, well.
Put it like this, I was born in 1940, so you figure that out.
All right, Doris. You have a good evening.
I'll let you figure that out. I was born in 1940. So the bogus voter record is exactly why Californians don't trust the rolls. The next report gets even uglier. Questions about homeless registrations and late vote surge in the LA mayor's race. Again, Trump Daily Post dropping this bomb. Thousands of homeless may be fueling Nathaya Rahman's impossible late vote surge in LA. Voter fraud was just busted on Skid Row. California refuses to clean its voter rolls and no voter ID. That is why nobody trusts their elections anymore. Look at this.
By about 3,000 votes into that critical second place spot. If Rahman holds on to her lead, she'll advance to the runoff election against Mayor Karen Bass in the fall. Now, before the ballot dump yesterday, Spencer Pratt posted in part, writing, "We've got all the way till July 6th to keep counting. They're not the only ones who know where to find votes." Now, moments after the new numbers came in, Mayor Karen Bass's campaign released a statement attacking Rahman and labeling Rahman her general election opponent, seemingly ruling out a Pratt comeback. A Bass spokesperson writing, "We look forward to winning a contest against an opponent who allows encampments near schools and fights against hiring more cops, yet is MIA on saving Hollywood jobs and fighting back when ICE invades LA." Now, on Friday, we interacted with an assistant U.S. attorney inside the ballot counting facility here. The DOJ says he was observing, and the first assistant U.S. attorney in LA, Bill Asaley, says California has refused to give the federal government its voter rolls and allows first-time voters to use IDs like gym and debit cards. Asaley also writes, California allows third parties to collect and turn in ballots on voters' behalf, a practice known as ballot harvesting with few restrictions. This makes it difficult to track who actually received, completed, and submitted each ballot. Now, Asaley says there are ongoing voter fraud investigations here in Southern California. He points to a recent woman who was arrested for allegedly paying people on Skid Row to register to vote. Bill, Dana.
Matt Finn, thank you. Nice to.
So the Skid Row scheme sounds familiar. It should roll back to tape 2010 when Kamala Harris didn't get elected. Didn't get declared the winner for weeks after late mail ballots out of Los Angeles wiped out her opponent's lead. Flashback 2010. Weeks after Election Day, Kamala Harris won California's Attorney General race by less than 1% after a surge of mail-in ballots from Los Angeles.
4 weeks after the November 2nd election, California finally has declared a winner in the Attorney General race. Harris finished so close to her Republican opponent that it took a month to finish counting every vote. She won by less than 1 percentage point.
Yeah. It's the same case. The playbook has been around for years. Now even Elon Musk is weighing in. He's blunt. Once voting gets this fraudulent, the people running it can manufacture whatever outcome they want. That's what he says. Once voting is this fraudulent, they can get whatever outcome they want, making a sham of democracy. He was quote tweeting Arthur McWaters. Let me get this straight. Nearly every major democracy restricts mail-in voting. They also require real government-issued ID. Mail-in votes with no confirmation of citizenship during registration would switch the California election. Thus, election in California is one of the most, let's just go to the post here. Yeah. One of the most insecure process in the developed world. There's no question that fraud happened. It's statistically certain. The only question is whether California can vote itself out of the mess or if it's already too far gone. When is enough enough? Who allows mail-in ballots? United States, yes. India, Indonesia, Brazil, Japan, Mexico, Philippines, France, South Korea. Nope. ID required to vote in all those locations. You tell me, right? That's why the SAVE Act is so important. Musk says the system's so loose they can get any result they need, and now Democrats on CNN are melting down over the talk. Over talk that Bill Plute could use ICE to stop non-citizens from getting anywhere near the polls. Democrats going berserk right now.
They can't acknowledge that Biden won. But I also think there's a focus on 26 and 28.
What could he do with this job in 26?
What he could do is take a single piece of intelligence that may not be corroborated or make something up and say Country X is going to interfere or is sending people to encourage non-citizens to vote, and that be used as an excuse for Trump to bring in ICE, federal troops, close down elections, seize polling stations. The list is extraordinarily frightening.
Oh, you mean you could manufacture evidence that there's foreign interference? Can that actually be done? Yeah. So left panics the second anyone talks about enforcing election law, and here's why. In Alabama, a former mayor and a city council candidate just got arrested on felony mail-in ballot fraud charges.
Been accused of abusing absentee ballots. Attorney General Steve Marshall says Jacqueline Boone and Stephen Thigpen have been arrested. Boone is the former mayor of Fort Deposit. Thigpen ran for city council. Both were declared winners in the August 2025 municipal election, but that election was thrown out over voting irregularities, and a special election was held in January 2026. Now, if convicted, each could face anywhere from a year and a day up to 10 years in prison.
Oh, but of course, no such thing as voter fraud, right? No such thing as mail-in ballot fraud. And this is what it really means. The fraud story and the election integrity story are now merging into one giant test of public trust. Americans are seeing reports of abuse in state programs, arrests tied to absentee ballots, bizarre voter roll entries, and election counts that drag on for days or weeks. Even if every delayed ballot is processed under state law, the perception damage is enormous. Every extra day invites suspicion. Every rotten roll entry raises new doubts. Every institutional cover-up makes the next official reassurance sound weaker. Elon Musk putting it bluntly, once voting is this fraudulent, they can get whatever outcome they want, making a sham of democracy. And that is why President Trump's attack on California hit so hard. He said what millions already believe. Confidence in the process is collapsing. And that's the takeaway tonight. The issue is not just one race or one county or one headline. The issue is whether the American people can even trust systems run by officials who too often ignore warnings, excuse failure, punish whistleblowers, and sneer at citizens for noticing obvious problems. President Trump is right to confront it head on because restoring faith in elections is not optional in a republic. It is the foundation. If California wants confidence, clean the rolls, count faster, enforce the law, require real verification. If Democrats hate that message, maybe they should ask themselves why basic transparency makes them so nervous. Drop your comment below. Tell us what you think. Should every state require voter ID and clean voter rolls before the next election? Yes or no? If you believe that Americans deserve honest elections and accountable government, share this report. Subscribe to Next News and keep standing for truth, law, and America first. And if you haven't done so, that secret number you see right there on the screen, well, congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Text raw feed to 844-840-4963. That's how we cut out the middleman and go direct to you with the news and information that you depend on. Don't wait for YouTube to ignore you or the algorithm to deceive you. I'll go direct to your phone with a message every night. And celebrate America 250 with us. It's right around the corner. Gear up at the Next News merch shelf below this video and pick out something you like. All right. Where are we going from here? I did see the comment. What is my favorite food? You want to know what my favorite food is? I'll tell you what my favorite food is. I love a good smoked brisket. That is like, that's it. Or home run in pizza. Yeah, that's another one. Home run in pizza, guys. That's where it's at. Okay. All right, Brian. Oh, thank you. You got that out already at 7:15. Much appreciated. Okay, let's get this next one out at 8:15. So we're going to go ahead and book that in the schedule for today at 8:15. So we will get that published for you guys, segment after segment. As we report, they get published, but you see it here live. So thank you for joining us. We are streaming live on X at Next News Network and with our streaming partner, Trump Daily Post, as well as on our flagship YouTube channel. Over 2 billion views, over 2 million followers, and also on Rumble and on Kick. So you can find us streaming across all platforms. We got to get to the next story. We got to talk about what's going on with Iran. Big news happening there. We're going to get to you the latest. Yes, brisket is the best. I love some good smoked brisket. Give me a nice packer, right? Trim it a little bit, rub it down, throw it in that smoker, let it smoke for like 12 hours, get a nice ring on it. Let it rest for a couple hours. Cut it. Good stuff. Okay, enough of that. We got to get to the news. All right, Brian, let's see where we're at here. Okay. Tonight, the Middle East may be entering its most dangerous phase yet, not because the missiles stopped, but because the talking started. Iran launched ballistic missiles at Israel. Israel struck back, and President Trump stepped in with a blunt message. Enough! Get back to the table. And suddenly the headlines look like total chaos. Shooting, threats, warnings, negotiations, all at the same time. But this is where it gets serious. When enemies are still armed, still angry, and suddenly discussing terms, that's often the last mile before either peace or a much bigger war. So the question is quite simple. Is President Trump forcing an off-ramp, or are we one misstep from total escalation? See, this is the part the corporate media will never explain clearly. What we're watching is not random confusion. It looks contradictory because both sides are trying to convert military pressure into political leverage. Iran launched waves of ballistic missiles, with Israeli officials warning that even a handful of those weapons could wipe out neighborhoods and kill masses of civilians. Israel then signaled, as it always does, that it will not sit back and absorb terror. But President Trump, acting like the adult in the room, cut through all the noise. His message has been consistent. You fired your missiles, that's enough. Now get back to the table and make a deal. It matters because the Trump administration is not offering weakness, not offering another Obama-style cash palette disaster, and not rewarding terror before results. This is America First clarity. Not sanctions relief up front, no blank checks, no nuclear weapons. That is what real leadership looks like when the region is on the edge and everyone else is testing whether peace is real or fake. And when we're talking about systems designed to confuse people until they surrender, let me tell you about something that hits millions of American families directly. Now, pay attention to this, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed so you pick a plan and never look at it again. That is the Medicare confusion industrial complex. And seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. And Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor, and they compare plans based on your doctors, your prescriptions, and your needs, not somebody else's sales quota. Some seniors could save as much as $1,100 a year. So, do not guess. Call Chapter at 910-728-4109. That's the number you see on your screen. Pause the video, write it down, give them a call, and get help from someone who actually walks you through it. When the stakes are high, whether in global negotiations or your monthly bills, clarity matters. That takes us right back to what President Trump is doing here. You see, because this is the twist. See, the biggest headline may not be the missiles at all. It may be that both sides appear to be fighting and negotiating at the exact same time. President Trump posted that both Israel and Iran are looking to do an immediate ceasefire, with final peace negotiations moving ahead, while also making clear the pressure stays on until a final deal is reached. That's the key. The Trump administration is not confusing leverage with surrender, and when you look at the posts, the statements, and the reactions side by side, you can see the story is entering the transition zone between open conflict and a forced settlement. Breaking 911 posting this: Iran launching a barrage of ballistic missiles as Iran at Israel as fighting resumes, shattering the April ceasefire and prompting Israeli retaliatory strikes. Israeli ambassador to U.S. Yishol Leiter said Iran fired 11 ballistic missiles, warning that each had the potential to devastate an entire neighborhood and cause mass casualties, adding that Israel would not tolerate such attacks. Check this out.
And we start with a Fox News alert. Israel and Iran trading fire overnight, testing the already fragile ceasefire with the most strikes we have seen in months. President Trump posting to Truth Social just a few minutes ago saying, quote, Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting.
So the question is, I thought we got most of these ballistic missiles. Apparently they still have the means to launch them. So the missiles are flying even as Trump demanded the shooting stop. Now watch them unload on both sides, saying Israel and Iran have been fighting so long they don't even know what they're doing. This is from C-SPAN.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
President Trump dropping the F-bomb. He didn't just vent. He moved to lock in a ceasefire. Next to his Truth Social post, laying out immediate talks and makes clear the blockade stays put until there's a final deal. He said both sides, Israel and Iran, are looking to do an immediate ceasefire. Final negotiations on peace are proceeding, subject to ignorance or stupidity getting in its way. The blockade will remain in place and in full force in effect until a final deal is reached. Things should move quickly. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So, the post setting the term ceasefire now. Pressure stays on. Next, Trey Yanks reports that Iran is halting attacks after Trump's demand, with the regime looking boxed in.
Negotiations on peace are proceeding.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yanks was talking to the president. He is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey, guys, good morning. It looks like these sides are listening to President Trump. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps just announced they are halting attacks against Israel, but maintain the ability to fire again if the Israelis target Hezbollah in Lebanon. This is a significant development and an indication we may be looking at an off-ramp here after a whirlwind 24 hours across the region. This all started yesterday afternoon when the IDF struck the Lebanese capital of Beirut, going after the Hezbollah neighborhood of Dakhya. Immediately after, Iranian officials threatened to fire on Israel, and hours later they did just that, launching 4 waves of ballistic missiles toward the northern part of this country, sending hundreds of thousands of people into bomb shelters. The Israelis, after, decided they were going to return fire and strike Iran. But I was speaking with President Trump as these missiles were soaring through the skies of this country, getting his initial reaction, and the president told me what I would suggest to Iran: you've shot your missiles, that's enough. Get back to the table and make a deal. And again, the president reiterating his desire for a diplomatic solution today, calling on both Israel and Iran to stop shooting. The Israelis conducted dozens of strikes against the Iranian regime in response to that missile fire. And then early this morning, just after sunrise, sirens sounded across Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv amid incoming Houthi ballistic missile fire launched from Yemen, an Iranian proxy there. The Iranians then followed up with more ballistic missiles against Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and the northern city of Haifa before all of this started to de-escalate amid those calls from President Trump for both sides to stop shooting. But again, the latest information that we have, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has announced they will halt their fire against Israel, and the Israelis have not struck Iran for at least 4 hours, and
So, Iran says is backing off. That tracks what Trump is telling them in real time. Up next, here the president's blunt message. You fired your missiles. Now get back to the table and make a deal.
I just got off the phone with President Trump, who is following the developing situation across the region. He told me what I would suggest to Iran. You've shot your missiles. That's enough. Get back to the table and make a deal. The president once again calling for a negotiated settlement. He also spoke about the ongoing negotiations with Iran, saying we are very close. I would say an agreement would be signed on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of this coming week. And now this takes place. And so the president will get briefed on what is happening right now, this ongoing Iranian ballistic missile attack against Israel. But I asked him about those initial IDF strikes that took place earlier today. He told me they were not coordinated with the United States, and I asked him for reaction to the Israeli strikes against Hezbollah in Beirut, and President Trump said, I'm not happy about it. Now, more broadly, he said that the ongoing Iranian missile fire toward Israel at this moment certainly is not going to help the negotiations. But again, he is calling on the Iranians to stop firing these missiles and get back to the negotiating table to ultimately reach a settlement. The president talked about the power of the U.S. military and also the power of the ongoing U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports. This blockade, John, is currently crippling the Iranian economy. They are losing hundreds of millions of dollars each and every day. And that's part of the reason that President Trump has been able to maintain this strategic patience across the Middle East.
So that's the Trump formula: force pressure, the negotiations on Americans' terms. Now Netanyahu answers with his own warning: if Iran fires again, Israel will hit back hard. From Reuters.
If the terrorist regime makes the mistake of attacking us again, we will respond with force. Because Israel has the full right to self-defense, and we exercise it whenever necessary. I say this to you, dear citizens of Israel, just as I say it with appreciation and respect in my good conversations with my friend, President Trump.
So he says any new attacks will get forceful response. Meanwhile, one of the regime figures threatening America and Israel reportedly didn't make it through the day. This from World News. IRGC chief Ahmed Vahidi, who vowed yesterday to turn the Gulf of Oman into a graveyard for the U.S. Navy and end Israel's existence, apparently has been killed in Israeli airstrikes today. So, after that reported strike on an IRGC chief, the leverage gets even clearer. Trump shuts the door on the Obama playbook and says there will be no sanctions relief or frozen assets up front.
Do you know where all of Iran's nuclear material is?
Yes. Yes.
Would you unfreeze any Iranian assets or lift any sanctions up front as a part of any deal? So that would come after.
Comes after, yeah. If
they
behave,
turned
if they
over
do a good
their
job, we
nuclear
start
enrichment
talking, yeah.
material.
Unlike Obama. Obama flew a Boeing 757, a plane I know very well. They took the seats out and they loaded it up with $1.7 billion in cash from the banks in Maryland and Virginia and D.C. They emptied out the banks and they gave them 1.7 in green, and they gave them tens of billions of dollars, just kept giving them money, and it didn't work.
So, what does it mean? It means the center of gravity has changed. Earlier the question was whether Iran could keep firing, and now the real question is whether Iran can keep firing and still avoid a deal on President Trump's terms. That is a much tougher position for Tehran. The Trump administration has stripped this down to simple, hard lines. Stop shooting, no sanctions relief up front, no reward for bad behavior, and no path to a nuclear weapon. That's why even dramatic developments, including reports of senior IRGC figures being taken out, now feel secondary to the larger point. The endgame is forming in real time. Israel wants lasting security. President Trump wants the war ended permanently. Those goals overlap, but the diplomacy has to hold, and that makes this phase incredibly volatile. Now, here's the bottom line. The real story tonight, not just that missiles flew or that threats were made. The real story is that President Trump appears to be forcing this conflict into a decision point. Keep fighting or come to the table under pressure. That's the formula. Strength first, deal second, not the weak-kneed disaster America got when Democrats were in charge, and not another giveaway to a regime that spent years funding terror and threatening Americans. If Iran is pausing attacks, that's not a coincidence. It's what happens when the White House projects strength instead of confusion. But this still is the most unstable moment, because one retaliatory strike, one misunderstanding, one act of ego could blow the whole thing apart. So I want to hear from you. Do you believe President Trump can force a real deal here? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this with someone who needs the truth, and make sure you subscribe for more America First reporting. But most importantly, text the 2 words you see on your screen. Raw feed, see those words? Text it to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman, guys. We're tired of seeing all the comments and you guys saying, oh, I'm not getting notifications. I don't see you in my feed anymore. Well, the only way around that is for me to send a direct message to you. That's it. Very simple. Text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963, and I will send you a direct text message every night so you get the news that you rely on. And let's celebrate America 250. It's right around the corner. Check out the Next News merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick up something you like. Support Next News and America 250. All right, guys, we are moving right ahead here. We got to talk about what's going on with the citizenship crackdown that's now been exposed. The news is moving fast right now, guys. And it's only Monday. Oh, looks like we got a super chat that came in from Rumble. What is that here? Let's take a look real quick. Oh, look at a salty nationalist. Also, get out and vote tomorrow. I'll be voting for Alan Wilson for my governor. All right, salty nationalist, thank you. And Chris says, thanks, President Trump. MAGA High Gary N3 family, $15. Wow. And Principled Enigma, dropping $5 over on Rumble. Sedition equals conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against authority or state of or monarch. Welker did this to President Trump in front of the entire country. Well, we expect nothing less from the mainstream media, and that is why we continue to dominate all of the feeds, because people have lost faith in the mainstream media. The more people lose faith in the mainstream media, the more they look to sources like the Next News Network that's streaming on X at Next News, streaming with a streaming partner, Trump Daily Post, streaming at YouTube and Rumble and Kick and all the places that we can. We're getting the message out every way possible because we want to make sure the American people have the information that they can make informed decisions on. All right, Brian, let's get to our next story here. I'm going to go ahead. This Israel-Iran story, we're going to get that locked in for release at 9:15 so we can stay right inside the primetime window when Americans are looking for the news. Again, these segments are recorded live and then we are published individually on all the platforms, but you're seeing it here first. You're the lucky ones. All right, let's continue with this next story. Trump busting a massive fraud ring. And the blue states are panicking, of course. That's what they do. Right now, the Trump administration is making one thing clear. Fraud is no longer being treated like a paperwork problem. It's being treated like a full-blown threat to the American taxpayer, the immigration system, and the legitimacy of government itself. We're talking about Medicaid arrests, food stamp abuse, fake workforce credentials, vanished federal funds, and now even citizenship being put back under review if it was obtained through deception. Ilhan Omar, I hope you're paying attention. See, this is bigger than just a scandal or a state or a program. President Trump's team is building a whole-of-government crackdown. And if you think Democrats are nervous now, wait until you see where this is heading next. And I'll tell you why this matters. For years, Washington acted like fraud was just background noise, something to manage, excuse, or bury in paperwork. But the Trump administration is drawing a hard line and saying fraud is not random, it's systemic. It moves through benefit systems, healthcare billing, immigration files, identity records, workforce pipelines, and the very institutions that Americans are told to trust. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, soon to be the Attorney General if he gets through the nomination process, says there are dozens of investigations underway nationwide, with more arrests coming, and that's music to my ears. USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins says that red state cooperation already uncovered 200,000 dead people receiving food stamps, 500,000 people getting more than one benefit. And if that was found in states that actually complied, what exactly are blue states hiding while they sue to block transparency? Add Minnesota to the list, where a House oversight report alleges the Walz administration ignored fraud warnings while billions in federal funds disappeared from social services programs. Oh yeah, this is not bookkeeping. This is a test of whether government exists to serve citizens or protect the fraud machines Democrats built and defended. While Washington finally starts exposing fake systems and fake numbers, smart Americans are also asking how to protect their own future in a world built on fragile paper promises. So if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money. They got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today, a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver because, you see, listen to silver. It's more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the massive industries that are powering the future. That's why Americans are turning to Noble Gold Investments. If you want to learn more, go to nextnewsgold.com right now. Depending on the qualifying amount, you could receive a 1/10 ounce gold coin with your order while supplies last. Or you can call that number 877-646-5347. When governments and systems wobble, owning something real is not fear, it's just common sense. Now let's get back to the bombshell, because the biggest development today is not the visa story by itself, it's what comes after it. The Trump administration is reportedly moving to revoke the citizenship of 17 U.S. citizens accused of immigration fraud. That's according to CBS. Think about that. Ilhan Omar, are you listening? See, the crackdown is no longer limited to stopping future abuse at the border or in benefits office. It's reaching backwards, reopening old cases and arguing that fraud does not become legitimate just because time passed. That changes everything. It's exactly why the left is starting to lose control of the narrative. This from Trump Daily Post, our streaming partner. They had this: AG Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel are arresting fraudsters in blue states. The GOP states were already cooperating. They're cracking down on governors and officials who refuse to cooperate on massive Medicaid fraud. The Trump administration now threatening to pull federal funding from these states. Arrests are being made, and that is what accountability looks like. Let's take a look here.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration has made fighting fraud a priority. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche told Saturday in America there is more to come.
In some states, they're making it almost too easy for fraudsters to do what they're doing. And you do have state employees who are aware of how easy it is in some states to steal from the American taxpayer. We have dozens of investigations going on all over this country, and you're going to see more and more arrests as the weeks and months go on, because this is something that became a real crisis that we are now addressing with the full weight of the federal government.
Haley, an excellent interview and show as always. So talk to us about what you expect now that they are on this. Will we see accountability there in that state, and who's going to be in the spotlight?
Yes, we will see accountability. And let me just draw a contrast for you. Kash Patel and DOJ, soon to be Attorney General Todd Blanche, and when I believe he'll get confirmed. They prosecuted a state employee last week. They had indictments. They have arrests. Not only are they bringing accountability on the legal side, but Vice President J.D. Vance, Andrew Ferguson have twisted the screws on blue states, saying we will take Medicaid funding from you if you don't step up. Hawaii, within an hour, it was 11 a.m. during your show, Harris, where they announced Hawaii, they were going to withdraw funding. The next hour, on Outnumbered, Hawaii put in place a fraud task force, a strike force. So blue states are stepping up because the federal government, the Trump administration, is twisting the screws.
Good, and they should. So Team Trump is putting blue states on notice over Medicaid fraud, with the rest already rolling. Now the crackdown widens as CBS reports. The administration is moving to revoke the citizenship. CBS reports Trump admin plans to announce it's seeking to revoke citizenship of 17 U.S. citizens accused of immigration fraud, expanding its unprecedented denaturalization campaign. So it's not just welfare fraud getting hit. They're going after immigration fraud, too. Next, a massive H-1B scam out of India comes into focus, with reports that nearly 90% of applications contained bogus information. Eric Doherty reports, OMG, a massive India H-1B visa fraud ring has just been busted. 90% of India's visas applications contain fraudulent information. 100,000 counterfeit certificates have been seized.
Holders since 2015. Over 70% came from India and nearly 12% from China. And when you zoom in on this map you're looking at, you can see where most are being hired. The dark red spots show a high density of H-1B visa holders. And now we're learning more about the fraud within the program. One former official tells Newsweek that up to 90% of applications, 90% from India, contain fraudulent documents or involve unqualified applicants. And finance law enforcement in India claim it has uncovered a network of universities that produce fake degrees which were possibly used to obtain these high-skilled H-1B visas, including one school which allegedly stole over 36,000 fake degrees, sold, I should say. It cost as little as $1,400 for one of those. And while these are supposed to be high-skilled employees, during almost all of Biden's time in office, 83% got junior or entry-level positions. And now Texas is taking action, cracking down on those abusing the program.
Wow. So the fake degree pipeline shows how badly the system was abused under Biden. Now the Trump DOJ is preparing the biggest denaturalization push yet against people accused of gaming that system. Broken. Trump DOJ announcing the largest ever program to denaturalize U.S. citizens accused of immigration fraud. Ilhan Omar, are you listening?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that's one of the angles that we're looking at is the people who committed immigration fraud against our system, and how do we denaturalize those people and send them back to where they came from. There's also, as you know, Will, under the Biden administration, there was a big blurring of the lines between illegal and legal immigration. The Biden administration would often take people who were coming in on fraudulent asylum claims, fraudulent refugee claims, and basically wave the magic wand of amnesty and say, we're not going to enforce the immigration laws against those people. The first thing, and maybe the most important thing that we did in the Trump administration, is that we stopped that from happening. But then you still have a lot of people who benefited from that Biden administration amnesty program. We're trying to unwind as much of that as possible. We've already had some success, by the way, Will, despite the fact that left-wing radicals in the justice system, the court system, have tried to stop us. We have been able to denaturalize and actually unwind that temporary protected status, a lot of those fraudulent asylum claims. So that work has been happening, but it's going to keep on happening so long as Donald Trump is president. I think Minneapolis is the tip of the iceberg. Oh, yeah. I think there's sort of a good news, bad news situation in that, Will, which, you know, the good news is that we're stopping the fraud that's happening against the American taxpayer. The bad news is that my own children will never be able to attend school at the Quality Learning Center. So, you know, you got
yeah, the Quality Learning Center. Yeah, that's going to be the meme of eternity. From denaturalization to state-level cover-ups, the fraud story keeps getting uglier. Next, White House oversight report says Tim Walz's administration ignored warnings while billions in federal social service dollars vanished. This is from Fox News Politics. Oversight report alleges Walz ignored the warnings as billions in federal funds vanished from Minnesota's social services programs. Tim Walz, you belong in an orange jumpsuit. So Minnesota now, another case study on what happens when Democrats' systems look the other way. Next, USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins says red states handed over SNAP data while blue states are suing as investigators uncover dead people and duplicate benefits on the rolls.
A letter to every governor in America. No one had ever held the states accountable. The federal government funds the food stamp program. We send hundreds of millions of dollars a day to the states, but there'd never been a back end accountability on how is that money getting spent. So we asked all the states to partner with us. It's time to have accountability. The red states, of course, did. And with that red state data, we found 200,000 dead people getting food stamps. We found 500,000 people that were getting more than one benefit. And y'all, this was in the red states. The blue states wouldn't give us the data. They're suing us. We're in massive litigation right now, looking to cut those funds off until they give us that data. But the fraud is so rampant and so stunning that when the president, the vice president, and our team talks about, when we can root all this fraud out, we're going to really be able to cut the deficit, make sure we're protecting the taxpayer, but also make sure we're protecting the families that rely on these programs at the same time and by getting the fraud out.
Getting the fraud out, that's what we need to do. So after Medicaid SNAP, the pattern same. Accountability from Trump, resistance from the left. Meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries is melting down over Trump's D&I pick, Bill Plute, and openly hinting that he could hold up a FISA bill. Timu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, is erupting in panic after learning Plute will be named acting director of national intelligence and could purge more deep staters or uncover election fraud. Let's go.
There were already challenges as it related to extending foreign surveillance authority, given the refusal by the Trump administration to put into place the type of common sense reforms that would be designed to both promote our national security interests on the one hand, and on the other, protect the privacy and civil liberties of the American people. The negotiations prior to Trump's announcement with respect to Bill Pulte were already in a very sensitive place. And then Donald Trump, as he often does, tosses a hand grenade into those sensitive negotiations by elevating Bill Pulte as the director of national intelligence, someone who's a political hack, a malignant clown, and he's woefully unqualified to serve in any position in the federal government, let alone as acting director of national intelligence.
So you'd let it expire? Would you let it expire?
There are ongoing conversations being led by Jim Himes, but clearly to get to good faith negotiations, the effort to elevate Bill Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence should be reversed immediately. And then let's see where we wind up at the end of the week.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, huh? Let's see where we wind up. So, there you have it, right? What does it all mean, though? That's the question. It means fraud is becoming a governing framework for the Trump administration. Not a slogan, not a one-off task force, a framework. If a degree was fake, the visa gets questioned. If an identity was manipulated, the benefit gets cut off. If a state hid the records, federal money gets threatened. If citizenship was obtained through fraud, even that may be revisited. That's the escalation. The common thread is verification. Can the system prove who people are, what they qualified for, what they took, and whether government officials look the other way? Minnesota is the symbol. The H-1B story attacks the screening system. Denaturalization goes straight to the idea that the old fraud should stay protected forever. And the panic over Bill Plute shows the deep state knows accountability may be coming to their side of the building too. And that's why this story matters so much. President Trump's not just cleaning up one department, he's forcing a national reckoning with a question Washington avoided for years. How much of the system has been running on fraud fiction and deliberate blindness? Red states are cooperating, blue states are resisting, Democrats are suing, Hakeem Jeffries is melting down, and the more they panic, the more obvious it becomes this crackdown is hitting where it hurts. The former Biden years blurred lines, lowered standards, and rewarded abuse. The Trump administration is restoring standards, restoring consequences, and putting the American taxpayer first again. That's a win for law, a win for citizenship, and a win for every family that plays by the rules and expects government to do the same. If you want more reporting, the corporate media will never give you straight. Share this video, subscribe, comment below, yes or no. Should any state that blocks anti-fraud investigations lose federal funding immediately? Let's have a conversation. And let's stay connected too. We're cutting out the middleman here at the Next News Network. We're going direct, right to you. When the notifications never arrive, you know the ones that you look for? When our news drops? Or when you look for us on YouTube, but you just can't seem to find us because, oh, look, you search something and all you're getting is CNN, MSNBC? Well, that's why we set up this very special number for you. 844-840-4963. Thousands of patriots have already signed up, and it's remarkable to see how many people are getting on board to get the news and information that they deserve. The news and information that we present for you to make informed decisions. Just text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. And let's celebrate America 250 together, shall we? Check out the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick out something you like and let's celebrate together. All right, folks. The news is coming in fast on a Monday, isn't it? So much is happening. And what's happening in New York, though, that's the next big story. We're going to get to that as well. You're going to find out everything as we have collected all the news and information that you rely on. And we're going to be presenting it to you in just a moment. Brian, I'm just going to set up these scheduled posts for you so that they can drop for America tomorrow. But the folks watching live get to see it all unfold in real time. Yes, that's how we do it here. Our live viewers get the news first. So we're going to go ahead and get these scheduled out for everybody so that they get the news when it drops. But of course, like I said, when you're watching live, you get to see it in real time. Okay. Yeah, the text drops at 8:45 Central Time. Yes, Karen, that's exactly what we have set up for you guys. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, where are we going from here? Oh, yes, we're going to the new ICE surge. Kathy Hochul, not too pleased. I'm ready, Brian. Right now, the biggest immigration story in America is no longer about debate. That debate's over. President Trump's administration is now showing the country what enforcement actually looks like when Washington finally decides the laws of this nation still matter. Senate Republicans are moving the money. Tom Homan is promising a huge expansion. Even deep blue officials are warning activists not to interfere with ICE, and the left losing its mind in the streets. It's not just about Newark, not just about New York. It's about whether federal law can be physically resisted in the United States of America. And if that answer is no, then everything changes. You see, for years, Democrats and their media allies tried to keep this fight trapped in slogans. They wanted the country arguing over abstractions while the border crisis exploded, trafficking surged, fentanyl poured in, and law-abiding Americans paid the price. But the Trump administration has moved this issue onto totally different ground. Now, the question is not whether immigration law exists. The question is whether that law will be enforced in real time on real streets against real people who violated it. Senator Marsha Blackburn says Senate Republicans passed the Secure America Act to make sure ICE and CBP have what they need through the rest of President Trump's term. Then Tom Homan put the number on it, $70 billion. That means more targeting, more arrests, more detention capacity, more contractor support, and more staying power. And In other words, this is not a temporary burst. This is an enforcement system being built to last, and that's exactly why the left is panicking. They know President Trump is moving from promises to implementation, and implementation is where America First wins become permanent. And while we're talking about real solutions that actually help people instead of empty slogans, here's something that caught my attention. You've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about serious health struggles and dramatic turnarounds. When Rogan brings up red light-based therapies, Gibson says that plainly the stuff works. That stuck with me because I saw something similar at home. My wife dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for a long time, and it wore her down. Then we learned more about red light therapy and how light can support the body at a cellular level. And that sent me to Jonathan Otto's site, myredlight.com, where he breaks it down clearly and offers devices people can use at their home. He's been a guest on this channel. Check out the interviews that we've done with him. They're absolutely amazing. So if you've been curious, this is worth a look. Go to myredlight.com, use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Now, back to the story, because what happened next proves this crackdown is entering a whole new phase. And this is the part the corporate media does not want to admit. Even local officials in blue cities are starting to say out loud that ICE agents are law enforcement officers, period. The Chicago police chief made it crystal clear that boxing in federal vehicles, following agents, or ramming law enforcement is not protest. It is a crime that can lead to deadly force consequences. That matters because once local leaders stop pretending federal officers are outsiders, the left loses one of its favorite excuses. And when that excuse collapses, all that remains is the raw question. Will the law be obeyed, or will the mobs try to override it? Tom Homan calling out the outraged Democrats in front of millions.
I also want to remember the politicians are continually attacking us. Where were they the last 4 years when the number of women and children sex trafficking went all-time high? Where were they when 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl coming across the border? Where were they when women and children are dying making that journey? Where were they when over 4,000 families making that journey died, historic record? Where were they? Not a word. Now we're just trying to respond to what happened the last 4 years and keeping this country safe. And we're arresting a lot of public safety threats, take them off the streets, which make this country safer. President Trump promised to make this country safe again, and that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Homan putting Democrats on the spot. 4 years of chaos, dead Americans, not a word from the open borders crowd. Now the media angle gets ugly. Scott Peely is claiming CBS tried to tilt an ICE protest story to fit the anti-Trump script. Scott Peely, how do you say his last name? Just made a pretty stunning allegation. According to him, CBS leadership wanted a story about killing of an ICE protester, Renee Good, changed to better match Trump's version of events. He says he was told management wanted protesters portrayed as more violent and wanted Good described as driving towards the officer who shot her. He says the video evidence showed otherwise. Then came the admission there was a thumb on the scale for the president's version of events.
Kelly pointed to his February coverage of the killing of ICE protester Renee Good, alleging Barry Weiss directed his team to make the protesters look more violent and to describe Good as driving toward the officer who shot her.
There was a thumb on the scale for the president's version of events that I felt was a level of political influence that I had never seen in 37 years at CBS News.
Because President Trump's versions of events were, in fact, the real version of events. So if he's telling the truth, even legacy media insiders know the fix is in. But on the street in deep blue Chicago, police chief isn't playing along, warning activists that targeting ICE agents is a crime and could trigger deadly force.
Let me make this clear. Federal agents, ICE, HSI, are officers. They are agents of law enforcement. If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. And it's reasonable for them to use force based on those conditions. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. You are breaking the law when you do that. And you are putting yourself in danger. Following law enforcement agents around. The question is why? What do you plan on doing? It's also reasonable for them to believe that you're eventually going to do harm to them. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death. When you plow into a vehicle that contains law enforcement agents, you're using deadly force. And they can use deadly force in response to stop you.
So Chicago warning in plain English, federal agents are law enforcement and mob tactics won't be tolerated. Now here's the Senate response. Marsha Blackburn says Democrats try to choke off ICE funding and Republicans push through the Secure America Act anyway. She says that Democrats put our national security at risk because they want to abolish ICE.
In a dangerous world, how critical is the Secure America Act?
It is vitally important, and getting it through the Senate was an accomplishment. And it is important to realize the Democrats want to abolish ICE. They want to defund federal law enforcement. So they shut down the Department of Homeland Security, and we said, all right, we'll use reconciliation, and we will move this across the finish line so that Border Patrol and ICE are funded for the entire rest of President Trump's term. That is what we did. I encourage our colleagues in the House to take this up, to pass it immediately, get it to President Trump's desk so we can make certain that communities are safe and we can deport individuals that are in the country illegally, and we can fund federal law enforcement.
Considering we are at conflict with Iran, can you believe that this funding has been held up for so long?
It is inconceivable that they would do this, but they're so given to this abolish ICE method. And you know, one of the things, Mike, that they continue to do is put illegal aliens and their concerns before the interest of the American people. And as I talk to Tennesseans, they absolutely cannot believe that the Democrats would shut down Homeland Security, that would use Homeland Security investigations, the Coast Guard, the Secret Service, TSA as pawns in their game of trying to continue to abolish ICE. They want secure communities. They know that safe communities are going to be more affordable. People are going to be able to get to work. They support what the president is doing and what Republicans are doing to.
So she says Republicans got the money moving after Democrats tried to block it, and Tom Homan's about to spell out exactly what the cash means: more targeting, more arrests, and ICE fully funded the rest of Trump's term.
Well, look, there's a lot of things, operationals that,
Sorry.
Well, look, there's a lot of things, operationals that, it wasn't funding through big, beautiful bills. Salaries are funded. But for instance, overtime waiver, people are capped out. People are giving back money when they're working because they capped out overtime. We need to lift that overtime cap waiver, and we need money to do that. Operational support, a lot of the targeting warrants that we do, we have a lot of smart companies that come in and go through various sensitive databases to try to find people that don't want to be found, right? A digital footprint. So we got a lot of these companies that supply targeting to our officers to go look for these people. That's been stalled. So when this reconciliation passes, that $70 billion will fund us to the end of the Trump administration. You're going to see targeting increase. You're going to see arrest increase. We're also going to be able to pay our vendors, our detention facilities, our medical contractors. So that means that we're going to do a lot more. We're already, making historic arrests under President Trump, as he promised the American people. But with additional funding, we're going to keep our foot on the gas and keep moving forward.
Keep our foot on the gas. Not hitting in a slowdown. He's promising the gas pedal stays down outside Newark's Delaney Hall. You can see why backup matters as one anti-ICE agitator gets dropped after blocking the road. Check this out. Come on.
You like fucking pushing people around, you fucking pigs? You like grabbing my chest? Yeah? You like fucking sexually assaulting me? What you got for me? What you got for me?
Go home and kill yourself. Whoa. So the Newark scene shows what happens when activists think they can physically shut down enforcement. It didn't stop there. Next, you'll see police roll through protest setup and push Antifa back hard outside of the ICE facility. This from Trump Daily Post. BG on the scene. Newark police rolled straight through an Antifa tent and supplies outside the ICE facility.
Let them get out of the tent. Please do not escalate.
Guys, come back.
Instead of a flashlight, pig!
So while street theater gets cleared out in Newark, the administration is scaling up, not backing off. Next stop, New York, where reports say Trump wants to flood the city with more ICE agents. Daily Mail. Trump plans to flood New York with more ICE agents than you've ever seen in migrant crackdown. So the planned New York surge fits the bigger mission. More agents, more enforcement, fewer excuses. And in Salt Lake City, you'll see what looks like up close. ICE arresting an illegal alien who ignored a deportation order for 18 years. ICE yanking this illegal from El Salvador out of Salt Lake City Airport. She snuck back in 2007 and ignored a deportation for 18 years, had a work permit, claimed asylum, but never bothered fixing her status. Choices have consequences. Deportations are back under President Trump.
No! 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 My daddy! Help me! Help me! I don't know how to let it quit. I have my bracelet. No! Help me, please! My daddy! She's a human being! No! My daddy!
Snuck in 2007. 18 years. The airport arrest is the part the left never wants to talk about. The law still matters even after years of defiance. But Kathy Hochul, already in panic, denying Homan's plans and warning Republicans will pay the price if ICE floods New York. Oh boy, here she is.
While we're walking and talking, Jason, let's just everyone give us some space. If everyone can block up a couple seats.
Thank you, Governor. Can we ask you about Tom Homan's threat to send ICE?
Hang on.
Can we ask you about Tom Homan's threat made on Fox News?
Yes, you can ask me about that.
He said that they'll be coming. Is he lying?
He's going in a different direction than what the president said he wanted to have happen. So I think it's more he's going to take that up with President Trump. President Trump told me to my face in a room full of governors that when he was asked about the lessons of Minneapolis, Mr. President, what are the lessons of Minneapolis? And he says, we're not going where we're not welcome. And he looked over at me, as the governor of the state of New York at this meeting, and he says, for example, I will not go to New York unless Kathy asks. And I said, I'm not asking, so we're good. I'm not asking now. That'll never happen because they saw what happened in Minneapolis. They saw the chaos and literally the murder of 2 innocent civilians who were just simply exercising their right to protest. So they know what could happen. They know the possibilities. I want to make sure that we keep this city safe. As someone who used to live in the city, who has properties here, has friends here, I would think that the president, a former New Yorker, would understand we want to all keep this city safe. It is the economic engine of the country, so that'll be...
And that's what President Trump is planning to do. So here's what it really means. President Trump's team believes it has already won the public argument on border security, crime, and removal of illegal aliens with criminal exposure or final orders. So the center of the fight is moving away from press releases and courtroom spin and into implementation. Funding pipelines, officer support, detention space, transportation networks, digital targeting, and visible operations in major cities. And that is why New York matters. That is why Newark matters. That is why Chicago's language matters. And that is why Tom Homan's $70 billion figure is the real headline. The administration is not signaling a one-week show of force. It's building a durable machine to carry out enforcement for the rest of the Trump administration. The left understands that very well, which is why the street resistance is getting louder, angry, and more desperate. So let's just say it plainly, shall we? This is a win for law and order, right? And a win for every American who was told for years that nothing could be done. Something is being done now. President Trump made a promise to make this country safe again, and his administration is putting the money, manpower, and message behind that promise. Democrats spent years acting like ICE was the problem while the former Biden administration let chaos deepen. Now Republicans are funding enforcement, federal officers are acting with confidence, and even officials in deep blue territory are being forced to acknowledge reality. You do not get to obstruct law enforcement because your feelings were hurt by the law. That is not democracy. That is lawlessness. If you support full immigration enforcement city by city and state by state, share this report, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with one word: enforce. And here's the yes or no question tonight. Should anyone who physically blocks or attacks ICE agents face immediate arrest and prosecution? Yes or no? Let's have this conversation. Let's make sure that you stay connected with me when the algorithm and the notifications never surface our news. That's the news that you rely on. So just simply text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots are already getting the inside scoop when the notifications never arrive. I want to make sure that you stay in the loop. I want to make sure you celebrate too. America 250 is just around the corner. Go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com or check out the merch shelf below this video. Pick up something you like and let's celebrate together. All right. Let's go into our next topic. This flesh-eating fly is becoming a real problem. The White House is pulling out all the stops to ensure the safety of our food supply, but Canada has another plan. Yes, our friends in the Great White North, are they friends or not? I don't know. I think you'll have to decide after you see the news I'm about to present. Okay, where are we at right now? Okay, Brian, I'm ready when you are. Thank you, Principled Enigma. I appreciate the words. This is no longer just a ranch story out of Texas. This is now a test of whether North America can stop a flesh-eating livestock parasite before it hits trade, supply chains, and your grocery bill. Reuters is reporting more U.S. cases. Canada is reportedly moving to block livestock from Texas. And while the media fixates on the gross factor, the real issue is whether the system that once wiped out this thing can still move fast enough to protect American agriculture. The parasite is bad, but the economic fallout could be even worse. And the question now is very simple. Can it be pushed back before the damage spreads? And here's why this matters. Governor Greg Abbott made a very important point. This is a food production issue, not a food safety issue. In plain English, the concern is not that Americans are about to sit down and eat an unsafe piece of steak. The concern is livestock losses, disruptions to ranchers, export pressure, and the possibility that trading partners start reacting before eradication efforts even catch up. And that is exactly why Canada's reported move matters so much. The moment another country starts restricting livestock, this stops being a local infestation and becomes an economic fight. And remember, Republicans are not sitting on their hands. The Trump administration is already moving with eradication tools, infrastructure, and cross-border coordination. And this is what serious government looks like. Identify the threat, protect producers, prevent panic, and act before a bad situation becomes a continental biosecurity failure. The last thing America needs is another preventable hit to the food production after years of weakness during the previous administration. And while we're talking about preventing hits to your wallet, here's something every family with a senior needs to hear. Now pay attention to this, because if someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. You see, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials. It's all meant to keep you overwhelmed so you pick a plan and never review it again. That is the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even knowing it. Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your plan options and help you compare what's actually best for you. Some people could save as much as $1,100 a year. Call Chapter. Look at the number on the screen. Pause the video. Write it down. 910-728-4109. And get real help from someone who will walk you through it carefully today. Now back to a story where speed, clarity, and competent action matter just as much. See, here's the part that should really get your attention. The response now underway is not just patchwork containment. Secretary Brooke Rollins says the Trump administration has already ramped up sterile fly production in Panama, outfitted a new facility in Mexico, and started building a major new facility in Texas capable of producing 4 million flies a week. 400 million. That tells you the threat is being treated as a regional agricultural battle, not a one-off headline. And once you hear those numbers, realize the story is about capacity, timing, and whether North America can outpace the spread. Republican Senator Roger Marshall blames President Biden and immigrants for the rise in cases of flesh-eating screwworms. In 2025, under President Trump, U.S. halts screwworm fly eradication flights.
Eradicated the screwworm in 1966, and we'll talk about this, but this is another thing we can thank Joe Biden for, that when millions of people came out of Central America, they brought this screwworm with them. It was on their pets, maybe on their flesh as well.
So Marshall puts the blame on Biden and the border crisis, but the next clip gets into what the Trump team says it's doing right now. Secretary Rollins lays out the sterile fly surge, a new Mexico facility, and a major Texas build-out. Listen.
Exactly right, and that's what we've been doing. We upped the only sterile fly producing facility in the entire continent across North America has been in Panama, which is where that gap, that biological gap was that was broken under the last administration because so many people were trying to get to America through South America, Central America, and into Mexico. So the only facility was our Copeg facility in Panama. That produced on average about 30 million flies a week. We immediately upped that to 100 million flies a week and then have been flying those flies over the last year, which is, again, how we were able to keep it out of America for almost a year when it was supposed to be here, was using those flies to ensure that, and we call it the polygon, we move it around almost every day to figure out where the biggest threats are. So that has been successful, but we need a lot more than 100 million flies a week to begin to eradicate as they did in the late 60s and early 70s. While we've got a new facility in Matapa, Mexico that we began to outfit last fall. So that comes online in the next few weeks. That's going to add another 50 to 100 million a week. We've got to get to about 400 million a week. We've got some new technology coming out, but the big facility that, again, we broke ground in Texas, that at its full capacity, which will be next year, will be around 300 to 400 million flies a week. But again, we're hopeful we'll begin to start pushing back, but we've got the containment strategy. We've got people on the ground. Texas Animal Health Commission is the lead on this. We are helping, obviously coming alongside them to help from the USDA. It's an all hands on deck. This is not a blue versus red, Republican versus Democrat, those who lost their primaries versus those who won their primaries. We've got to get everybody moving in the same direction, and that's what we're working so hard to do.
So that's Trump response on offense, but the threat isn't standing still. Reuters reports USDA has confirmed 3 additional screwworm cases inside the U.S. 3 additional cases. So the new cases are exactly what Laura Loomer says she warned about from the start. She ties the spread directly to illegal immigration, says the deportation push still isn't where it needs to be. 2 more cases confirmed in Texas, she writes. I warned in 24 the screwworm would come to America if our legal immigration was not controlled. There have not been enough deportations. That's how screwworm got here. Illegal aliens weaponized migration. Invaders bringing flesh-eating disease known as screwworm to the U.S. via weaponized migration. She posted that in 2024. She says, I'm in Panama, continuing my investigation of the invasion of the U.S. We've just been informed that screwworm is now making its way to the U.S. She warned in 2024. So she's hammering the border angle. Now the economic hits starts to come into focus. The next report says Canada temporarily banning livestock from Texas over a second screwworm case.
The government of Canada is introducing a temporary ban on American livestock from Texas after a second case of the flesh-eating screwworm. It's raising concerns over the nation's beef supply and whether it could drive up prices. In response to the new case, Republican Governor Greg Abbott has announced that the USDA has a plan releasing millions of sterile male screwworms in the hopes that it would prevent females from reproducing.
So after the warning about livestock ban and beef supply pressure, Governor Abbott steps in with a clear message. He says it's a production problem, not a food safety crisis. Here is the Texas governor's response.
A case of the New World screwworm has been confirmed in the state of Texas in the calf in Zavala County. To be clear, just kind of a simple overview. The New World screwworm is not a worm. It's a parasitic fly whose larvae feed on animals, particularly livestock, wildlife, and pets. If left untreated, it can cause serious injury or death. To be clear about a couple of things, what we're dealing with is an infestation of animals. However, there is no food safety issue, full stop. There's a food production issue, but not a food safety issue. Also, for Texans, this is not an infectious disease that can spread like COVID or something else. So no worries about anything like that. I want everybody to know that there's a very well long established prevention and cure for the spread of the New World screwworm. A cure and prevention that the federal government has implemented in the past. It involves the release of sterile flies. It breaks the pest's reproduction cycle. The prevention requires the release of millions of sterile flies in targeted regions. The USDA is now importing and dispersing those flies into South Texas, and the USDA is also constructing a new sterile screwworm production facility in Edinburgh. It is essential that that facility be up and running as quickly as possible. Going back.
So, here's the real meaning of the story. The fight is no longer about one infected animal or even 3 additional cases. The fight is whether the United States and its neighbors can reassert biosecurity control before markets react harder than the parasite spreads. That's why Abbott's distinction matters. That's why Canada's reported restriction matters. And that's why the Trump administration's expansion of sterile fly production is such a major America First response. President Trump inherited a mess from the former Biden era where border chaos and weak systems left the continent more exposed, but now the adults are back in charge. Instead of denial, we're seeing production facilities, eradication, and action. And that's how you defend ranchers, defend trade, and defend the American food supply from a threat that should have never been allowed this close. So bottom line, don't let the media reduce this story to a bizarre parasite story, and don't let the left turn it into another excuse for noise and distraction. The real issue is whether America can protect livestock, exports, and food production before it turns into a broader economic problem. The good news, there is a proven playbook, and the Trump administration is moving aggressively to use it, from boosting sterile fly output to expanding infrastructure in Mexico and building new production in Texas. That is leadership. That's urgency, and that's what happens when the federal government actually treats biosecurity like national security. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe the Trump administration will contain this before it seriously impacts food prices and trade? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this report with someone who still thinks this is just a Texas farm story. If you want more America First coverage the corporate media will never give you, make sure you subscribe and you turn on your notifications. But most importantly, text the 2 words you see on your screen, raw feed, to that number, 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman. I heard your cries. I saw your comments. And that's why we set up this number. We want to make sure you get the notifications that you deserve and the notifications for the news that you rely on to make informed decisions. Thousands and thousands of patriots have already joined this effort to maintain the news connection between me and you. Let's make sure it remains unbroken. And let's celebrate America 250 together, shall we? Check out shop.nextnewsnetwork.com or the merch shelf below this video, and let's celebrate together. All right, folks, that's a wrap tonight. Thank you for joining us. Another amazing show. Lots of news, lots of ground we covered. First, we discussed President Trump's big move, which did include what was going on with the screw worm. Such a disgusting story, but it is a real threat. President Trump is on it, and of course, President Trump at the Knicks game tonight. And then we talked about what is going on in the South Carolina governor's race primary. Alan Wilson is pulling ahead, so make sure you get out. If you're in South Carolina, get out and vote. And if you know someone in South Carolina, maybe you're not there, give them a call, remind them. We got to get out the vote. All right, let's do that. And then, of course, the California fraud and President Trump walking off the set with Kristen Welker after she tried to throw him all kinds of disinformation regarding the election theft. And then, of course, the news out of Iran, the ceasefire, the citizenship crackdown exposed, the left just losing their mind. New York City, about to find out what happens. The ICE surge is coming. Canada blocking Texas, the screwworm, and so much more. So I'm so thankful that you joined us and you trust us to be your news source. I couldn't do it without you guys. You guys make this show possible. Make sure you follow Next News on X Make sure you follow Trump Daily Posts, our streaming partner on X as well. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You join our SMS alert system. Follow us on Rumble, Kick. Share the reports when they drop, whether it's on X, whether it's on YouTube. Copy the link, send it out through text message. That's really the most effective means to communicate, because a text message comes from a trusted source. We're your trusted source. When those text messages come through that I send to you, just forward it. Forward it to everybody you know. It helps expand our reach, bypassing all the algorithmic suppression. Or if you find a segment of this broadcast that you enjoyed, look for it on our YouTube channel when it's published. Share the YouTube link. Help us grow this movement, because we really are up against a lot. With the midterms approaching, there is serious algorithmic manipulation that is happening. And the only way we can win is through you. You're our secret weapon. Don't tell anybody. I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.